Go. All right, everybody. We're live. This is Philo, and with me, as always, is Mahdin. Uh, we haven't done a stream in a long time, and so we decided that, and this was a plan that we had from a long time back that we need to do. Debate review stream, and this the debate that we are gonna review here took place probably about 10 days back or so on Abbas Haider's channel, and this debate was between Qaiser Ahmed Raja and Harris Sultan. Qaiser Ahmed Raja was defending the Islamist position or the Muslim position, and Harsh Sultan was defending atheist position. And the title of the stream or the debate was Islamic morality versus atheistic morality. So this stream is gonna touch upon few of the points from that stream. It might be this review might be done in a fragmented sense, in that we might have to do it in multiple parts. So that's what we are gonna try and do. Mahaden, please, do you have anything to say? You haven't seen the video, so one more thing that we'll have to do probably is, as we go through this debate, since it's in Hindi, Urdu language, and Mahadan's background is not in those languages, so I'll have to pretty much go and run the stream, uh, explain on the fly to Mahadan exactly what's being talked about, and see how it goes, whether it goes as planned or it doesn't go as planned. So, Mahadan, do you have any point to add before we start the review?
No, hi Philo, and so on, and hi everybody. But yeah, like Philo has said, I've not seen this particular video, and nor can I speak the particular languages. I speak Bengali as a second language or a first language, if you want to say, because that was the first language I learned in my life. But otherwise, Hindi is something that I can, somewhat understand, somewhat not understand. So it's probably best if it's transcribed to me. But I've been looking forward to listening to this debate secondhand, if not firsthand, and I want to see, what's going on here. And to give a little prologue, I know it says it's Islamic morality versus atheistic morality, but on this video, we just really want to see not who wins, but whether either of them are right. And furthermore, um, we want to come with an impartial sort of outlook, because I come from a philosophical background, and I know that even people who engage in non-religious thinking can make lots of philosophical mistakes. So I'll be looking out for those as well. So, but otherwise, yeah, you want to take it away, Philo? We'll go from there.
Yeah, you just said what I wanted to say. That
Yeah.
this review aims to see things critically.
Mm.
Doesn't matter whether that argument comes from atheistic side or from any other religious side. Irrespective, we're gonna see it from a point of neutrality. But we would be very honest in saying that. Uh, Everybody has their biases, and it's quite possible that our biases might enter here in reviewing this
Yeah.
debate, and our listeners audience is free to point that out, either in comments or by coming on the stream and pointing out where our biases have got better of our impartiality. So one thing is, I haven't done this before, so I'll probably struggle to add this video to this stream. So pardon me, everybody. Pardon me, Mahadan. Uh,
Hmm.
I'll have to see how I can present something here. Okay. Give me just 1 minute, okay?
Sure.
Let's see how. So, if I do a share screen, I think that should work, right?
Yeah, I suspect so.
Yes. Hold on. Okay. Okay. So there seems to be an issue. It
Hmm.
says Google Chrome won't be able to record until I exited and entered back again. So what I'll do is I'll run the stream and you tell me whether you can hear it or not. Okay.
Okay,
And probably for this one, we won't put the video, but just run the audio in the background if that's possible, right?
go for it. Yeah.
Let's try that thing, right? Because otherwise, I might have to otherwise just log out and come back while you stay on the stream. Okay, that's
Okay.
the next possibility, right?
Okay.
Okay, so tell me when if you can hear the stream. Okay.
Can't hear anything.
You can't hear anything, right?
No, no, no.
Hold on. Uh, might have to do it on my phone. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
Nope.
I'm a layperson when it comes to streaming. So
Put the volume up a bit.
can you hear me? Can you hear the
Mhm.
audio?
Yeah.
Can you hear?
I can hear it. Yes.
आज हम इसलिए यहाँ मौजूद हैं क्योंकि कैसर अहमद राजा साहब और हारिस सुल्तान साहब के दरमियान एक डिबेट होनी थी जो काफी वक्त से स्केड्यूल होती रही बिलाखिर वो दिन है इसको फॉर्मली अनाउंस करने से पहले
Just pause it for a minute.
देखे हैं अगर दोनों पार्टिसिपेंट्स और मेरे दोनों बड़े
Yeah, paused it.
Yeah. So you can't get a video up at all. Did you say you have to log out and log back in?
Yeah. Let's try that. I think that's probably gonna be better, right?
Let's try doing that. Yeah.
Hmm.
I think we can wait. It's fine. What we could do is at the end of the stream, maybe delete some of the beginning segments so that the audience is not left watching, this
Right.
rather live technical work.
Right.
Yeah, so I think everybody would be appreciative of it anyway if we get the video up. I think that would be the best thing.
Oh, yes. Let's try it this way. Okay. Okay.
Oh, there we go. Oh, that's
Can you?
beautiful. Yeah, I can see it now.
All right. Let's make this slightly smaller. Hold on.
It's gone now again.
Yeah, no, I'm just fiddling around with different screens. This is better, right?
Much better, yes.
And so, how do I keep running it?
बड़ा मशहूर हूँ कि कैसर साहब ने तकरीबन हमें साल के बाद हमें लग गया इस डिबेट को करते करते साल पहले कहा था.
Can you hear it? Can you hear?
Yes, I can. It's perfect. It's perfect.
Okay.
All right. You might want to speed the video up a little so that we can,
Yes, yeah, I'm increasing the playback speed. Okay.
Yeah. As long as you can understand it and then translate it to me.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
So I'm going to take it to the beginning.
नहीं होती हो जाए तो कोई इस तरह की चीज बाद हारिस सुल्तान प्रोसेस होगा फिर आधा मैं आप लोगों को
बहुत शुक्रिया. इस वक्त 3 बजे में आपके इस डिबेट को मॉडरेट किया जैसे मैंने आपको बताया.
Okay, so the format of the debate is up here, as you can see on the screen, right, Mahdin?
Yeah.
On the right-hand side on the paper, I think it's a 30 minute, the arguments for their own cases, basically. So, the Islamic apologist has to put forth their arguments for 30 minutes. Then the atheist apologist puts arguments for 30 minutes. Then rebuttals for 10 minutes each. Then again, 10 minutes each rebuttals. Then I think cross-examination for 15 minutes each. And then question and answer for 30 minutes. Right?
Okay.
And how's the quality of the this thing? You can see it properly, right?
I can see it, yeah. I can see it.
All right. Yeah, so that's how the debate went through. So let's start with the arguments from the atheist side, right? Now,
well, is it the Islamic presentation?
Sorry?
Isn't the Islamic presentation first? Or is it the atheist presentation first?
This is the Harris Sultan is representing the atheistic side, basically, right?
Yeah, but is he going first?
Harris Sultan is going first, basically. And Qaiser Ahmed Raja is going second. He's the Muslim apologist, basically.
So who is this Qaiser person? I've never, heard of him.
He is a Muslim apologist. He has lived in London, pretty close to where you probably. I'm not quite sure whether you want me to say this, right? Okay, but he has lived in London. He has got his I think law degree from London or something like that.
Oh, I see.
Okay. And now
is he a lawyer?
I'm sorry.
Does he work in law?
I think he doesn't work in law now anymore. He's probably more of a motivational speaker.
Okay.
I haven't been to Qaiser Bhai's stream a few times, and we have had very nice and cordial conversations most of the times. But at times, and I don't want to be too critical of them in this stream or anything, but at times their tone is a little condescending. So that's one that's a point that I don't want to be too critical of, but then anyone you can see it, but that's how it is.
Well, my approach to that is obviously when it comes to general critique, you have to be fair, neutral, impartial, kind, respectful, right? That's all great, but if somebody else is being condescending, my personal view is that I don't mind being condescending back. You know,
Yeah,
so
that's yeah.
so
I
the
totally.
yeah.
I mean, I understand your point of view in that regard,
Mhm.
but somehow that's not my style. I mean, and
Okay.
we can we can agree to be different here in a sense, basically.
Oh,
Somehow
that's
that
good. I think. Yeah.
somehow that doesn't come naturally to me, to be honest. Yeah.
I like a
Uh,
bit of combat. I
yeah.
enjoy combat. So it's okay with me. I find it okay. I sometimes like the idea of sticking up for the principle and respecting yourself in a certain you want to respect everybody, but when they're disrespecting you, there's a limit, and when that limit is crossed, I think some firmness in your approach is appropriate. Um, but that's just me. It works for me. It might not be effective for everybody.
Hey, Mahdin, a friend wants to join. Let him take in, and then um,
Yeah, go ahead.
hey, Khayali Pulao, I have posted the link to the stream. Please join in. Okay, Mahdin. So we were talking about this tone of Kaisar Bhai,
Yeah.
and I respect him nonetheless. We have had very nice conversations. We have put forth our arguments. Uh, I would love to see two of you go, go at each other, not in a condescending sense, but in a philosophical sense. I think you'll be a very perfect match for him. I would long to see that, to be quite
Okay.
honest.
That'll be
Yeah,
interesting.
that'll,
Yes.
that'll be interesting. That'll be interesting. Someday, I think, yeah, will uh, you know, uh, I'm pretty sure you'll go there. But let's go step by step first.
Sure.
Yeah. So the thing with so where he's coming from, he's being, I think, mentored by Sabur Ahmed, I think. So he's being mentored by Sabur and the IERA guys, basically. I think
Mm.
Muhammad Hijab, what's his name, Hamzat Sources, and all these guys. He's being mentored by that Sapiens Institute, or whatever that new institute's name is. One thing I wanted to point out, by the way, and
Mm.
you probably realized it as well. You remember there was another guy who was a very core part of IERA, Adam Dean, I think. Adam
Yes,
Dean.
yes,
What was
yes,
his
yes.
name?
Yeah, Adam Dean. Yeah.
And he seems to have dropped out of the scene
Yeah,
completely.
yes,
I haven't
yes.
seen him in a long, long while.
Well, he's become a very, very progressive Muslim, one that doesn't espouse the more literalist approach of IRA.
yeah,
So
that's what.
yeah, he's. I've seen him do videos with Muhammad Hijab disagreeing about the doctrine of war that's laid down in the Islamic texts,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he also married a prominent actress and political activist. I think is it Miriam Sarah Francis Sarah? She's a Brit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Miriam
yeah,
Francois Serra, something like that.
something
Yeah,
like that. Yeah, and
yeah,
she also at least in the physical approach, she initially donned the hijab, and then eventually she took it off, and it seemed as though she was becoming more and more progressive in her
yeah.
approach.
I think she
Yeah,
used to be a fierce, defender,
yeah.
and of the traditional Islam, and then somehow she
Yes.
moved away from it, and now it seems
Alongside
like she's
husband. Yeah, alongside her husband who dropped out of IRA as well. So both seem
right.
to have just moved in that direction, and I don't know why. Yeah.
Uh, hey, Mahadan, just I'll stop you for a bit. Khayali Pulao is here. Khayali Pulao, welcome to the stream.
I
Mahadan, Khayali Pulao is a good friend of mine, and Mahadan Khayali is a friend of mine and a co-host of this stream, basically. So if you have
Hello.
any point to make, please go ahead.
Hi, Mahdin and Philo. Thank you very much for taking on. Can you guys hear me? Is my
Yeah,
voice
yeah.
Yeah,
clear?
we can.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for taking me on. I just sort of started watching your video, so I don't have the background of what you're talking right now. So you guys just continue. I'll just give my 2 pence worth wherever I feel I have something to add.
Yeah.
Sure,
Okay.
sure. So, Khayali Pulao, just I'll give you a brief idea about what we want to do in this stream. What we decided to do was that we wanted to review the Harris Sultan versus Qaiser Ahmed Raja's debate and see where each of those, both sides basically made mistakes or any fallacies in their argumentation, basically, and see it from a very critical point of view and a very neutral point of view, basically. So that's at least that's the goal. Whether we are able to achieve it, that's a very different story, and that's why I'm pretty sure you will be a very important part of this stream as well. Because if we do make a mistake or we become biased, I'm pretty sure you can point out our mistakes, or So that's what
Sure.
that's the plan is.
Sure, absolutely. We'll try to be
Kylie,
as neutral as possible.
yeah. Kylie Pulao, is that how you pronounce it? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I don't speak Urdu or Hindi, so I may make
Problem.
make a
You
few
can call
mistakes.
me. You can
Sure, go
call me
on.
KP. KP for short.
All right,
Yeah,
KP.
so,
That's fine.
Khalipullah, just giving you a brief intro of Mahdin. Mahdin, you can take over if you want, but Mahdin comes from Bangladeshi background. Mahdin,
Uh-huh.
I'm not quite sure how much information you would want me to reveal in any of the streams. So, uh, you better go ahead yourself and say
No,
more of
yeah, no.
your.
Like you said, I'm from a Bangladeshi background. I also I've got a background in law and a bit of philosophy as well in terms of my education. Other than that, yeah, I don't speak those languages, so I'm gonna put all my trust in Philo to translate this video to some extent. I'll try my best to understand it. Otherwise, Philo's going to help assist in the translation process.
Okay. And I guess that's why Philo was saying that. I can probably, if in case Philo makes any mistakes, just in case, so I can probably, correct him in places as well.
Yeah,
If
I'm
that.
pretty sure you'll be a very essential cog in this whole thing because you understand the language very well, better than I'm pretty sure better than I do. So I'm pretty sure you can intervene anytime, and if you want to translate it, you're more than welcome.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's start and
Yeah, let's
see.
start now. Yeah.
Okay.
कि 5 मिनट सॉरी इस वक्त 3 बजे में आपके रात के सुबह के
So
अभी आपके
a
फजर का
little
टाइम
bit
भी
of
हो जाएगा
introduction. I'm
बड़ा
gonna move
मशगूल था
forward.
फंस गए
Yeah.
स्पेस पे हमने उन्होंने कहा कि आपने जो टॉप साहब हम सबको समझाएंगे कि एथिस्टिक मोरालिटी क्या मतलब का
Okay, Madan and Khayali, before I go ahead and move forward on this one, this is a basic question that I want to raise and see what you guys think about it. Is there such a thing as atheistic morality? What is there a term like this, atheistic morality? What do you guys think?
I think we talked about that in the last stream, didn't we? To some extent, we did.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Yes.
But just for clarification, I do think there would be. It depends how it's developed. So if there's a moral theory, for example, that you develop that does not make any reference to a deity or a god, and it operates independent to any sort of religious belief or god, I would say that's somewhat can be characterized as an atheistic moral framework. Yeah, if it's not making any references to God, not dependent upon God, etc. So yes, but when we talk about specifically what that moral framework is, it might not be exclusively attached to atheism or anything like that. So let's imagine something like John Stuart Mill's harm principle, which is the one that we spoke about last time. John Stuart Mill harm principle, which is that you can live your life as you wish as long as you don't affect or harm other people. So that's kind of like
Right.
a morality. That's you need, and you do need defending that. You need justification for that. So any atheist who says, "Well, I don't need to justify this. I don't need to justify Mill's harm principle," is wrong, because Mill wrote an entire book on liberty, yeah, explaining his utilitarian principle of harm and trying to justify it. So of course it needs justification, and it is atheistic to the extent that it can operate independently without any reference to God. However, at the same time, a theistic framework can use Mill's harm principle as well, because there's so many religions. For example, one person, you can have a view of religion where a progressive Christianity that believes, the Christian particularly believes that God gave man the right to create legislation, right? And certain basic principles like harm is the guideline to make that legislation, right? And then the Christian can use Mill's harm principle to create laws and call it moral laws or moral framework, etc. So it's not exclusively the case that these moralities are attached to atheism, but can be thought of as atheistic moralities depending on the particular atheist. Yeah.
Right. Khali, you want to make any point?
Yeah, so I think what Mahadin just said, I think I sort of totally agree with that.
Mm.
So it's more of a definitional issue as to what you actually mean by atheistic morality. If
Yeah.
you mean whether atheism by itself offers a sort of moral framework, no. I mean,
No. Yeah.
within
Exactly.
that particular framework, it's not that that's not the case. What it does is it's just, I mean, it's a belief about God, but as an atheist, what sort of moral frameworks would you adopt? Of course, those would be based on those which are not based on any sort of religion or God. So I think I would totally agree with Mahadin's point. It's just a definitional issue. It's just not a yes or no answer. The question is, what do you mean by atheistic morality? If by that you means what sort of morality or where do atheists get their morality from, then fine, you can call that atheistic morality if you want to. But if mean by that, if you want to take that to mean as if something atheism actually gives you some sort of morality, that would not be the case. So I would
Yeah,
agree.
I agree with that. Yeah, that sounds about right. That's a perfect description. Yeah.
Right. So the point, yeah, I agree with both of you. The only slight point that I would like to make here is, uh, in terms of kind of, I agree that it's a definitional issue, and the only difference probably you can make between these two is that when you talk about a certain religious morality, and you're talking about a certain set of rules that are commanded by a certain book or maybe a certain deity. But when you talk about atheistic morality, you're not talking about a certain set of rules that are followed by a particular set of community. Each atheist might have their own independent set of moral frameworks, basically. So you can't say that a particular set of moral framework is atheistic morality, basically. You see the
Um,
difference between these two.
Yeah, but I mean, just to give you a similar case from the other side,
Yeah.
can't they say that there are, even from a theistic morality point of view, there are multiple frameworks. So each religion offers
Yeah,
its
but
own
here we are talking about
moral
Islamic morality,
framework.
right?
Sorry.
So here we are talking about a particular morality, which is called Islamic morality, right? Now you can have a debate between what different particular rulings there might be, but they all are said to be coming from a single book mostly, right? Or a group of books, right?
Mhm.
In a sense, you can say, right? But that's not how it is in terms of atheistic morality, right?
Yes.
And you can have
So
you
I
can
think as KP said, as KP said, I think the proper comparison is between atheist and theist, and then to compare the specific moralities, it'll be the specific religion versus the specific atheistic morality. You see what I'm saying?
Right. And I would
Yeah,
agree. I'd agree.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
right. I mean,
it would have been
yeah.
a
If you
better.
do
Sorry.
it theistic versus atheistic, then that makes sense, right? But here
yeah,
Yes,
we are
I'd
using a
agree.
specific religion, right? So
I would agree
there's
with that.
a difference, right?
Yes, yes. A better title would have been, whatever moral framework, let's say, whatever moral framework do Harris, is attached with, or he
yeah,
adopts, and that against Islamic morality rather than atheistic morality, which is a sort of, there are lots of different moral frameworks which come under that umbrella. So yes, I would agree that the title of the debate could have been a lot better. I mean, this is not the title of the debate. In fact, is not correct. I would agree.
Right. I think we are on the same. All of us are on the same page. So let's move ahead. Let's
hmm
play this, and see.
मुझे पूरा यकीन है कि कुल होने आया हूँ मैं, तो हम इसको लड़ गया। ये दावा है, लेकिन अनफॉर्चुनेटली जब इस दावे की गहराई में जाया जाता है तो इधर-उधर की बातें शुरू में मोरालिटी होती ही सब्जेक्टिव है, ऑल्दो के भी सब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी के ऊपर है। जाया जाता है तो इधर-उधर की बातें शुरू हो जाती हैं, जिससे पता चलता है कि ये भी टाइम बाउंड है, ये भी सब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी के ऊपर है। जो कि हमारा दावा है कि दुनिया में मोरालिटी होती ही सब्जेक्टिव है, ऑल्दो के बहुत सारे फिलॉसफर ऑब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी की भी बात करते हैं, रीज़न की बात करते हैं, और सारे ऑब्जेक्टिव मोरलिस्ट जो हैं वो गॉड को इन्वोक नहीं करते, लेकिन इस्लामिक एंगल में ऑब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी को गॉड से इन्वोक किया जाता है।
All right. So Mahdin, what Harris is saying here is morality is all subjective uh, from the point of view of humans, basically. Khali, if you see any discrepancies in my translation, please correct me. Right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes,
yeah,
you're right
yeah.
till now.
तो इसके ऊपर अगर
So 1 minute, Philo, 1 minute, pause it. Did he say then? Harris Sultan just said morality from the perspective of human is subjective.
Right.
So what is he making? Is he talking about that all humans without? So basically, all atheists believe in subjective
Okay,
morality. Is that what he's saying?
let me rewind and get the whole thing
Yeah,
correct.
because we know that's not true. Some people, I mean, they might be right or wrong, but there are atheists who believe in objective morality. Whether they're right is another question, but they do
Right.
believe it.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Before I may have mistranslated his point because
Okay.
we didn't go from the very beginning. So let's
Okay.
hear him out completely. I'm gonna be scrambling a little bit because we are doing this for the first time, right? So be patient
Sure.
when I'm yeah. All right. Khayali bhai, you too,
No
Mahdin bhai,
problem.
please. Okay.
No problem.
All right. Let's see. Let's go back a little bit and see what he's exactly actually saying.
हो
Okay.
जाता हूँ, तो फिर मैं अपने दावे से दस्तबरदार हो गया। तो कैसे साहब, बहुत शुक्रिया आपका। उम्मीद करता हूँ कि अच्छी डिबेट होगी। जो टॉपिक है, जो इस्लामिक मोरालिटी और एथिस्टिक मोरालिटी का, मुझे पूरा यकीन है कि कैसे साहब हम सबको समझाएंगे कि एथिस्टिक मोरालिटी का क्या मतलब है, क्योंकि मैं तो ये स्कूल होने आया हूँ, मैं तो सीखने आया हूँ इनसे, लेकिन मुझे इस्लाम।
So his first point, Harris's first point is he wants his opponent to explain what atheistic morality means. Basically, the point we were discussing a couple of minutes back, basically, right? So his contention is there's no such thing as atheistic morality, which I think we already discussed and debated that there is a we need to be a little bit more nuanced on
Yeah. Yeah.
the definitions mean, basically,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
इस्लामिक मोरालिटी का मेरा ख्याल हम सबको पता है कि इस्लामिक।
Sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, no. I thought you were giving me the opportunity to speak. Let it carry on because I was just going to repeat myself. But carry on.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
मोरालिटी क्या है? अगर हम इसको इस्लामिक मोरालिटी का जो क्लेम दिया जाता है वो दिया जाता है कि एक ऑब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी है और ये एब्सोल्यूट मोरालिटी है। ये दावा है, लेकिन अनफॉर्चुनेटली जब इस दावे की गहराई में जाया जाता है तो इधर उधर की बातें शुरू हो जाती हैं, जिससे पता चलता है कि ये भी टाइम बाउंड है, ये भी सब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी।
All right, his next point is that he's saying that Islamic morality, and it's a claim that it's an objective morality, and it's an objective morality, it's an absolute morality, but this is just a claim. But eventually, even the Islamic morality is subjective. Basically, that's his point. Next point.
Okay.
Basically.
Okay.
So, anyone wants to? Anyone
Did he
wants
make the point though? Did he make the point that every single morality is subjective? That's his view, yes?
No,
Yes,
no.
I
That was
think
I hadn't picked that initial part, and that's
Because
why
what I'm trying to get
I
at
was
is that
wrong earlier. I was wrong earlier.
right. I'm just trying to get at whether he thinks everybody who is an atheist or not a non-religious person perceives their morality to be subjective, or is he saying that even if you are an atheist who believes in objective morality, he thinks it's subjective? So there's a difference between his opinion versus
No,
everyone else's opinion.
nothing of that sort was in the part that we played so far, right?
Okay.
Earlier, what I said, just 3-4 minutes back, what I said, forget about that. Once
Okay.
we went,
I think
once we went back, yeah.
I think Philo, Philo, I think he did say that morality is subjective according to him.
Okay.
Human morality is subjective according to him. He didn't exactly say that all atheists believe that morality is subjective. He didn't say that,
Okay.
but he according to what he just said, he did mention that human morality is subjective.
Yeah, I
And
think
I think
we are yet to play that part. I think, right? The
yes,
next part
yes,
is
exactly. I guess
exactly
maybe
what he's
yes.
saying, right?
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah,
You
go
can
ahead.
continue and then
I
we
mean,
can
you're
discuss.
right. You're right.
के ऊपर है, जो कि हमारा दावा है कि दुनिया में मोरालिटी होती ही सब्जेक्टिव है, ऑल्दो के
right, exactly. At this point,
Yeah.
he's saying दुनिया में morality होती ही
होती ही
subjective, which means
exactly.
that he's saying that uh, in the world, morality is subjective, basically. So he is not saying that a particular, he's calling atheist or somebody. He's saying morality, all morality is pretty much, and if I
Sure.
understand him correctly, he's saying all
Yeah.
morality is subjective, right?
Okay.
So I think that the point he's trying to make is not whether people believe that objective morality exists or not. He
Yeah.
thinks that all
He
morality
thinks, yeah.
is
Yeah.
He
subjective,
thinks
basically. Yeah.
he
Sure.
thinks that
Just want
all
to
moralities are
yeah.
subjective.
I just want to
Yeah.
emphasize then to anybody who then watches this review and maybe they watched the Harris Sultan video and thought, oh look, atheists believe morality is just subjective. So just to enunciate that this is not necessarily the case for everybody. For example, there are atheistic philosophers, very well known ones. Peter Singer, he's an ethics moral philosopher, recently has become, I think, an objectivist. Very recently, he believes in objective morality. Daniel Parfit, again, he's a very well-known philosopher, and he also believed in objective morality. And outside of professional philosophers, Sam Harris actually believes. Sam Harris is, I think, he studied philosophy, but he's not really a philosopher in terms of he doesn't publish anything. But he's an objectivist. He believes morals can be learned through science. So I just want to clarify that this is not the position for everybody. So anybody watching maybe this video, not just this video, but Harris Sultan's video, if they watch us, then they can probably see that different atheists believe different things in respect to this question. And moreover, different theists believe different things as well, because different theists have different philosophical views. You might be a Hindu, you might be you might be Christian, and you have different views on how morality works. So just like there's differences between religions, there's differences between secular people, non-religious people, atheists.
Right. I totally agree with your point there. The only thing, the difference that here we are talking about, Harris thinks that all morality is subjective, right? So he's a moral subjectivist for sure, right? But he also thinks that there can't be an objective morality or an absolute morality. I think that's what he's trying to present here, in a sense, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Just to,
Yes.
Yeah, I think once we move forward, probably we'll get a little bit more idea.
KP,
Yeah,
Ali,
KP,
you
you
want
want
to
to
make
say
some point?
something?
Yeah.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
KP.
What Mahadan just said, I think that clarification is also important, because if we directly translate what Haris just said, he said, and that is what is our claim, that
Hmm.
morality is always subjective. Now, he doesn't specify what our mean, but whoever is
Hmm.
watching that video might be implying that by our he means atheists. So I
Yeah.
guess it's important to clarify that. Although we'll get a bit more clarity on his view, what he means by his subjective morality. If I just summarize it in one line, I mean, having talked to him multiple times and having watched this video and other videos on this topic, where Haris has explained his view. His view is that the framework is selected subjectively, but under a specific framework, there can be objective moralities. So under a specific framework,
Okay.
under a specific moral framework, there can be objectively right or wrong things. So that is his.
Okay.
I'm just summarizing his stance, but over here he hasn't clarified that.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Great. 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 All right. Let's move on then.
सारे फिलोसफर ऑब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी की भी बात करते हैं, रीजन की बात करते हैं, और सारे ऑब्जेक्टिव मॉरलिस्ट जो हैं वो गॉड को इन्वोक नहीं करते, लेकिन इस्लामिक एंगल में ऑब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी को गॉड से इन्वोक किया जाता है। तो इसके ऊपर अगर ये टॉपिक वो रख देते तो शायद ज्यादा बेहतर होता, लेकिन चलें हम देखेंगे जो चीज भी अब एथिस्टिक मोरालिटी के खाने में डाल दी जाएगी तो देखेंगे उसका क्या बनता है। तो
All right. So what he's talking about is, I think we already made this point.
Yes.
He's pointing out that not all believe in subjective morality, but there are objective moralists as well within even atheists as well. So, and even within the theists as well, um, uh, there are objective moralists, and they invoke God for their objective morality in a sense, basically. So
So
something that
Haris
we have
has
already
clarified his
spoken.
stance, in fact.
Yeah,
So
he's
he has clarified. So
clarified.
he's pretty much in line with us. I mean, whatever we just
Okay.
said.
Good. That's good.
He's
That's good.
clarified his stance,
Right.
in fact.
Yeah.
So he's clarified that there are others who invoke or who believe in objective morality without God. So he's clarified that.
All right.
Hmm.
So he's in line with what we're already talking about. All right. Let's move on.
लेकिन इस्लामिक मोरालिटी का हमें पता है क्या, वो है अनचेंजेबल मॉरल कोड्स जो ऑब्जेक्टिवली डिफाइंड राइट एंड रॉन्ग है बाय गॉड, और उसके अंदर बाय वर्च्यू ऑफ इट्स ऑब्जेक्टिविटी एंड एब्सोल्यूटिज्म उसके अंदर कोई चेंजेस नहीं आ सकते।
So the point he's trying to make, guys, here is that in contrast to whatever atheistic morality he's talking about, he's contrasting Islamic morality as objective or absolutist, but at the same time something that can't be changed. Once moral framework has been decreed, you can't change it, basically, is what he's trying to say. And what are your thoughts on that, Mahdin, Khayali?
All right. Well, even in Islam, I do think there are exceptions to the rule. For example, consumption of pork is prohibited, but in certain circumstances, it is permitted. For example, survival. Right? That's just one example, and there's many similar sort of rules. So it's not absolute in that sense. So usually when people say, at least in philosophy, absolute morality it's a firm, fixed rule without any exception. So thou shalt not murder. You can't murder somebody. You can't kill another person, I should say, at all. Even if there was a self-defense justification, it still won't be right to murder somebody. That would be like an absolute principle. So even if somebody's trying to kill you, you can't kill them. That's an absolute moral principle. But if there's an exception to the rule, then it's not absolute. That's what we usually mean. If that's what Harris Sultan means when he says Islamic morality is absolute, there might be individual rules that are like that are so defined that they cannot have an exception. But I think there's lots of exceptions to even Islamic rules, right? I just gave one, so I don't think that's the case. In terms of whether or not Islamic morality can ever change. It can change. Not the moral code might not be able to change, but the circumstances can change. So, for example, if
Seems like Mahdin
Mahathir
has
has
dropped
dropped.
out. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. What
I
do
was going
you
to
have
ask a
to say
question from
about
Mahathir.
this? Yeah, I think
Yeah,
what
so
Mahdin, just
I mean, I was
carrying
just about to
forward
ask a
what
question from Mahathir. Yeah,
sorry, I'll finish
yeah.
some point and then
Sorry.
you can carry on. Uh,
Yes, you continue,
I
please.
think what Mahaden was saying is perfectly all right. Even about killing, if you say killing is absolutely prohibited in Islam, you won't be right, because in self-defense you're allowed to defend yourself or kill somebody. About lying as well is permitted. If you are under threat of being killed, you can lie. So these are some of the points, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Kylie. Do you want to add to the point that Mahaden was making?
Yeah, I mean, I have a question regarding this position that you explained, and just as Mahathir explained earlier. I mean, what if the rule that I'm specifying incorporates that exception? So, for example, what if I say that the rule is it is wrong, it you shall not murder except in self-defense. So, what if I say this is the rule? Then can I say that is an absolute rule?
I think it depends on how you define, right? Basically, that's
Right?
the point.
Exactly.
I mean, your definition is, see, that's why all the philosophers in the past, starting from Socrates to Plato and all those guys, they somewhat paraphrase this thing, saying that it's better to define your it's better to have good definitional understanding of the points you are discussing, and this is
Right.
the point of this absolute, right? Because we don't have a complete comprehension of what we mean by absolute, right? Once you start to use the term absolute, you mean that it's unchanging forever, right? And within that definition, you can kind of fiddle around, say killing is absolutely wrong. If you say this, then killing in any circumstance becomes absolutely wrong. Basically, you can't do that. But you can put certain clause that this clause, can I fit this clause that killing except in self defense is absolutely wrong? Does that make sense?
Yes, I
I
mean,
think
but
you'll have to
yeah,
definitionally agree on that point. Basically,
right. So, I
that's what
mean,
I'm
what I'm
trying to
saying
say.
is, would you then, I mean, at least in this more clear and clarified, and the statement with the clause added that the exception is self-defense, can I say that that rule is absolute? Let's say, in any particular framework, would
See,
that be fine
in
then?
my eyes, that doesn't remain as absolute, because you're talking about a certain act, and you can't the moment you start to qualify it, it becomes not absolute in my eyes. At least that's how I
I
think. Because
I would disagree with that. I mean, we can disagree, but because
because
I would say that
there's
when
no
when
limit
my
to
rule, yeah, there
yeah.
is
I
no
mean,
limit. But if I have made my rule clear enough, and then if that clear rule I can apply to every situation, if it caters to every situation,
no, but
then I
then
can
you have
say
to
that, and
define.
I'll explain that it's absolute.
Yeah, sure, sure. Let's
by the way,
ask
guys,
Mahdin.
you may not have
Yeah,
noticed I'm back.
yeah. Hi, Martin.
Yeah, Mahdin, you dropped out, I
Martin,
think. Yes.
I don't know what happened. My screen just changed. I don't know really why. Just when I was talking in the middle of it. But whatever the case, who is this Wesley Curry person?
I don't know. I don't know who's
and what is
he,
he
and
saying?
he's uh,
So,
anyway. So Mahdin,
Mahathir,
we
yeah.
were talking about the definition of absolute, basically, and
Yeah.
Khali brings a good point. He's saying that if we add a clause to a certain definition of killing, say killing
Mm.
is absolutely wrong except in self-defense. Does that
Mm.
whole
Make it
package or
absolute,
whole
yeah.
definition becomes an
Yeah.
absolute? I mean, I'm saying it's a matter of understanding between two parties. I mean,
Mm.
there's no absolute definition of this thing, right? Of any definition, basically. I mean, you can fiddle around and you can change it, basically. That's what my point is. And so, yes, I mean, you can say that that becomes the new absolute, right? Definition of murder is absolute, or killing is absolutely wrong.
Mm.
And you can say that, but then, yeah, you take away the essence of.
Well, you think about it this way. I know what you mean. Like you can encode it into the definition such that becomes the new rule, and any exception to that rule would render it non-absolute. But since we don't have any more exceptions because we built it into the rule, it becomes a new absolute rule. Imagine doing that to the point where you add so many qualifiers and exceptions into the rule that it's not okay to murder, but apart from everyone, apart from your brother, right? So murdering people is wrong, apart from killing your brother. Yeah, which means sorry, murdering people. Sorry, I got that wrong. Murdering people is wrong, apart from killing everybody, apart from your brother, right? Something like that. I might mispronounced it before. So you are allowed to kill everyone apart from your brother.
Right.
Oh,
Mahdin is gone again.
Yeah, Mahdin, you need to get your network sorted out. Seems like
Yeah.
we're getting into the thick of things and good definitions, and
Yeah.
now you're dropping out. So yes, Kylie, that's exactly the point I was trying to make, that Mahdin is making, because
Mm.
you'll keep on adding so many qualifiers that it'll render the whole meaning or the whole essence of the definition useless, pretty much. And that's the danger. Not that I'm saying that what you're
Right.
doing is wrong, but I'm saying there is a danger that Madin just illustrated, right?
Yeah, that's where the catch is. It's a danger,
We keep
but I
squeezing.
would still say that it makes the statement absolute. So I'm just saying that I mean, I'm not Mahaden, and you would are a lot more educated in philosophy. I haven't studied it that much, but just uh, from my understanding, I understand the dangers and the logistical complexities in adding all these clauses. But I would say,
Mm.
for example, when it comes to murder, let's say, I think a simple clause of adding, the exception of self-defense. I think in under it makes it absolute for many frameworks. Even if you look at it from an Islamic perspective, I'd say there are exceptions because I know that there are exceptions in Islam. But let's say if there's a religion which states that yes, murder is wrong except in self-defense, I would say that is absolutely wrong under that framework. That is my understanding, and I understand that
Okay.
there we can add a lot more exceptions to that.
Yeah.
But
The
I
thing
would say
is,
this
thing is,
particular is absolute.
yeah, thing is, KP.
Yeah.
It might make sense in a definitional level, but I think the whole point of all of it is to show whether there's a qualitative difference. I think this is how we can get to it. Is there a qualitative difference between a genuinely absolute rule and a rule that allows for many exceptions? And there is a qualitative difference, right? So if I'm allowed to kill everybody, but not my brother, then that's very, very different to a rule that doesn't allow me to kill anybody other than in the circumstances of self-defense. It's qualitatively different. And that rule is also very different to where I'm not allowed to kill anybody in any circumstances, whether there's self-defense, whether I'm dying, whether it's for surgery, whether it's to kill somebody for a greater good. I'm just not allowed to kill anybody. Is there a difference between that rule, that extremely tight rule that doesn't allow any exceptions, and the rule that allows many, many exceptions, is just built into a definition? If there's a qualitative difference, then we can still look at each definition in a qualitatively different sense. You see what I'm saying? That a rule that doesn't allow killing in any circumstance is still vastly different from a rule that allows killing in some circumstances.
Right. Absolutely. I agree. It is different.
Yeah, and that's all we mean by there's a difference, and we call the one that has those differences non-absolute, and the other one that has no exceptions at all, even whether it's built into the rule or not. Qualitatively speaking, we can say that's absolute, and I think that's how we can get away from the philosophical kind of definitional games, right? Like ultimately, what we're both doing is playing games with the definition, which you can do. But on the ground, it's still different. And that's all that matters, I think. That's my view on it, anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move on to this on this debate. Okay. Any point you want to make, Kylie? Sorry,
No.
I didn't ask you.
Fine.
I have been dropping out a lot, right? So I'm not sure what I've missed. Is that all that we talked about?
No,
Yes.
you haven't missed much. I think
Yeah.
I agreed to your point, the point you made right now, and that's what I was trying to explain to KP. But you did a much better job than I was able to do. But let's move on.
Okay.
तो चेंजेस कैसे, ये कौन सी वो चीजें हैं जिनके अंदर चेंजेस नहीं आ सकते, उसके ऊपर हम देखते हैं कि वो क्या है. एक उसके अंदर by virtue of its objectively defined right and wrong है by God, और उसके अंदर by virtue of its objectivity and absolutism उसके अंदर कोई चेंजेस नहीं आ सकते. तो चेंजेस कैसे, ये कौन सी वो चीजें हैं जिनके अंदर चेंजेस नहीं आ सकते, उसके ऊपर हम देखते हैं कि वो क्या है. एक
I think Harris is still just talking about this objective or absolute morality of the theist, and then he's talking about why can't changes be made to a certain of these moral rulings, basically. So yeah, we will just move. You want to say something about this?
Yeah, just very quickly, because even with a particular atheistic framework of morality, let's say you have a particular framework of morality, you might not change the foundation. The foundation may remain the same, right? So if it's harm, right, you're not going to change that with time. If it changed with time, then it might lose a sense of its. If you're an objectivist, if you're a moral objectivist, it might lose a sense of its objectivity. For example, stabbing somebody in the face without any other justification, without no self-defense. It's not because of you're going through medical surgery. There's not even a greater good that might come from it. In that circumstance, that seems to be wrong. Even under an atheistic framework, an objectivist may argue that is timeless. That can't change. New information may shed light on the thought experiment, so we might learn something that we didn't know before. But other than that, that's like a moral rule that cannot change with time, circumstance, and so on. So even with atheists, you will have that. And if that's the case, I'm not sure why the theists can't have similar principles at foundation.
I think I agree with you. And one of the examples that I think probably I gave in one of the streams was that ultimately you are grounding your morality on one of these principles that Mahdin, you just talked about. Say, for example, harm principle, right? And you can ask a theist and say, particularly maybe those who follow Abrahamic faiths, and specifically within those Christians and Muslims, right? The basis, and this is my opinion, and correct me, Khayali and Mahdin, if I am wrong. In my opinion, it's still at the core the harm principle, basically, right? And not harm principle for others. I think I talked about this. I think Mahdin corrected me on this as well. This is not the harm principle for others, but
Some
inflicting a
sort of
harm
harm.
within, yes, inflicting a harm on yourself and saving yourself from that harm, basically. Because the concept of heaven and hell is so deeply enshrined or entwined in these religious concepts that you fear for hell, and you greed, or you have a greed for heaven. Why? Because that at the core of these philosophies is the pleasure, the ultimate pleasure, right?
Hmm.
Whether which you want to have, and the harm that you want to avoid for yourself, right?
Just to,
So
just to
in that
clarify
sense,
though, yeah. Sorry, I'll let you finish. I just want to say something in
no, I'm
regards to
done.
that.
I'm done.
Oh, yeah. Just to clarify though, it depends on the particular theist. So if the theist is only following moral dictates of God because they want to avoid pain and pleasure of hell, or the displeasures of hell, or they want to be rewarded by the pleasures of heaven, then yeah, and there's some sort of harm analysis, some sort of consequentialist analysis, egotistical one happening there. And if you remember, we talked about ethical egoism, where the irrational agent calculates what is the best course, best decision to make in a particular circumstances that maximizes his pleasure and minimizes pain. A rational person would, for example, look at the situation and go, "Oh, if I follow God, I'll get infinite reward. If I don't, I'll get infinite pain, and therefore I should follow God." So a rational egoist, an egoist being a very selfish, self-centered, somewhat analysis of the situation, would do that. But you might not be that type of theist. For example, you might, irrespective of God's threats or God's temptations of heaven, for example, you may abide by the dictates of God because you think it genuinely improves humanity. In which case, it's not about avoiding hell or being rewarded by heaven. It's because God is some sort of super intelligent mind that churns out ethical guidelines that improve human welfare. In which case, the God believer is not much different than us, who might follow, let's say, well-being, whether you think well-being is subjective or not, or an objective code or objective axiom. But when he follows well-being, he doesn't follow it directly. He doesn't figure it out for himself. He uses God as some sort of artificial intelligence, even. Well, no, it's not artificial, but like a human would use artificial intelligence, like a computer, as a messenger to give him dictations to follow codes and ethics that ultimately improve human welfare. You see that? So he doesn't have to do it to avoid hell, or be tempted by heaven, etc.
I think I partially agree with you,
Yeah.
Madin, but let me clarify what I mean by that.
Okay.
I think the main difference between what I think and you think is, I think that fear or the harm principle is happening at the subconscious level. It's happening without you
Okay.
knowing it. Whether you eventually you think that you are doing this for the greater good of the humanity and believing the diktats of a supreme being, uh,
Hmm.
not because of the fear of hell or the greed of heaven, but that thing is happening subconsciously and not on the conscious level, even if that's happening. That's what I'm
Maybe.
saying.
Well, we
And
must stress that. Yeah. We must stress
so
though that
you
that is a little bit of psychological conjecture, right? It would be because, right? Just for academic hygiene, you might be right. It's like a theory that on a subconscious mind level that's the case, and maybe even the theists can fight back against us or atheists by saying that on a subconscious level there are other motivations, ulterior motivations, while we follow moral codes. You know?
Yeah, but we don't
Yeah.
deny those ulterior motives, right?
Okay. That's
Our
fine. Yeah.
ulterior motives might be pleasures and pain, or whatever pleasures and pain you may define. So, right?
Yeah, it could be. It could be. But what I'm trying to say is that the first point that I said as an objection to your point is that it's still conjecture of if there are any actual. First of all, because a subconscious, unconscious mind is very hard to measure already, if you know what I mean. And I think it becomes very tricky at that point onwards. Of course, we are a combination of multiple motivations. and there are plenty of underlying motivations that we're not conscious of, but it's very hard to hard to determine what those are.
Right. Khayali, you have any point to make?
Yes. I just wanted to point out that you said that we sort of agree and we accept that we are sort of in a way rational egoists. So and I agree with that. But what I would also like to point out is the theists also, in a way, I think they also accept the fact that they are rational egoists, because if even when we'll go into Gasser's presentation, he
Mm,
mentions, and it's a common argument, that what is the need? Why would one be moral? What is the need? Why would necessarily yeah, a human would be moral, right? And they claim that if there is no God, then no one needs to be moral, which means that what they're saying is that in absence of God, there is no accountability, and therefore, in absence of accountability, you would not be moral. And accountability means
mm.
that pleasure and pain of the heaven and hell. So in a way, I would say that they agree that they are rational egoists, but they just whenever we'll ask this straight head on to them in straight and clear words, they would not agree with that. But in general, I would say that it's very clear that they agree with that.
Yeah, I think that that would mean that this particular Muslim's view is an a egoistic kind of view at bottom, right? At bottom, the reasoning he adopts why be moral is he
Right.
calculates the risks, the harms, the benefits, and figures out that it's better to follow God than not. Is it something like that? If that's the case, there is
Right.
yeah. But that does fall into something called ethical egoism. In philosophy, there's a branch of philosophy called ethical egoism that was formulated by a philosopher called Ayn Rand, and you may have heard of it. I don't know. And she takes that kind of view, and it's like a selfish view.
Mhm.
It's like a hedonistic principle. Is that if it turns out to be the case, her view is if it turns out to be the case that you can gain more pleasure by killing everyone in the field in the village, right, and minimize the harm. If that's the most optimal decision to make, you should do that, right?
Right.
So
Right.
that's a very some people would say that's very immoral, and many philosophers have disagreed with the view and saying that that is not how we formulate ethics. Like virtue ethicists and deontologists would think you can't do that, irrespective of whether it benefits you or your tribe. You can't just go kill another person. I'm not sure that this particular Muslim's views will fall in line with that sort of account. But if it does, I think the logical implications of this view is that it does, right? If
Right.
God said something like, whatever it is, if it's in your self-interest to do that, you should do it. Is that what his view is? If it is, then he proves that his view is very similar to Ayn Rand's, which is who is despised in a lot of philosophy. Yeah.
So just I mean, what I'd say is, and if you'll ask Muslims straight forward in a straightforward manner, is that what you believe in? They'd say, no, we believe in human welfare and
Mm.
reducing human suffering and all that. But if we look into their philosophy, that what you just mentioned, I think that is what is the case actually. I'll just give you an example over here. So, for example, if God instructs a human to kill a child, now
Mm.
we can say that it's immoral from the framework of the no harm, under the no harm principle. However, since God has instructed a man to kill a child,
Mm.
and if that
Mm.
man does not execute that order, now he might end up facing God's wrath because he did not follow his
Mm.
instruction. Now,
Mm.
therefore, he would follow that instruction and carry out that act.
Mm.
And in Islam, we have such cases where God has
Mm.
instructed, for example, Khidr to kill a child, and he
Yeah.
did
Yeah. Yeah.
that just to obey God, right? And that was the right thing according to the Islamic moral framework.
Uh,
So, which
yeah.
means
What I
that
would say is that Yeah. Sorry, I'll let you finish. I don't want to interrupt.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I mean, I've clarified my point. So I'm saying that that
Okay.
is why I would say that it's the case. I mean,
Mm.
it's not just the no harm principle, or simple that it is in a way rational, that this
Egoism.
ethical, ethical
Ethical
egoism.
egoism. Yeah. Yeah, I would say. Let me just emphasize though, because I know in Islamic philosophy itself, they don't necessarily argue it to be like that, right? They think God knows more than us, and therefore
Right.
actually does increase our well-being. He knows something that makes it objectively moral in a in
Hmm.
a in a well-being centered sense. You know that it would make sense had we had not had more knowledge. So even something like killing your
Yes.
son, yeah, is a genuinely compassionate act under the Islamic framework. It's just something that, because we're so inferior in our intelligence, can't understand. So they would always also be saying that it's like the how we would focus on improving people's welfare and well-being and reducing harm. But this is something like that. Yeah. In addition to that, they may also say that is it also in your self-interest and self-benefit. But they try and make this argument both ways, really. And I think, yeah, aside from individual Muslims, I think amongst mainstream like Islamic philosophers, jurisprudent, people who work in Islamic law and so on, they believe something like that. They don't think it's just arbitrary or they
You're,
don't think it's yeah, they don't think it's just selfish either. It
you're
isn't
right.
just that God says kill your son, and this is good because it is in your egotistical interest, so you can get to heaven. It's not like that. It's not like a little gambit, like a mafia thing. You'll get this reward if you do this. It's you will get this reward, you'll if you do this. In addition to that, what you're doing is also the right thing. And if you go into deeper into that, it's right because it's good for humanity. They say that, right? Um,
Right.
that's what they
Right.
believe.
They
I
do.
would say, yeah, yeah,
Right. They do. They do.
yeah.
Just one more. I'm sorry we're taking a bit longer, but I
Yeah,
just
go
wanted to
ahead.
ask one question from you. So you are right. Whatever you just said, it's very correct, and I agree with that. But I have one question then. So many Muslim scholars agree that if a child dies before he's an adult,
Mm,
he would go to heaven directly. So he would not go through this test. So in a way, he is guaranteed heaven if he dies young. Now we would both agree, or in fact, everyone would agree that eternal bliss or pleasure is absolutely better, and there's no comparison with having a life on this earth, or having some pleasure, a temporary pleasure on this earth, or having an eternal pleasure and having a guarantee to get that pleasure. Now,
yeah.
if we take that scenario, and the people who believe that
Mm,
if a child dies young, he is directly going to heaven. Now, if a person he cares about other humans, let's say he wants to maximize others well-being, let's say, do you think it would
mm,
make sense for that person who believes that a child would go to heaven, for that person to start killing children, at the cost of his own afterlife? Because if he's killing, he is disobeying God, right? So he is going to end up in hell. But he is,
mm.
at the cost of his own, at his own expense, he is actually making sure that a lot of other human beings are going into heaven. Would you say that
Kali, can I
Sure.
just interrupt? I asked this same question to Mufti Wajidi once.
Right,
Right, the exact same question.
right.
But the other point that that person is gonna go to hell, it's
Hmm.
only gonna be a temporary position in the hell, basically,
Right, you're right.
according to Islamic scriptures. Yeah.
Exactly. If he's a Muslim, he's
If
actually
he's a
just
Muslim, he's
yeah,
a believer, he's a strong believer, then all are gonna end up in heaven, and
absolutely
so
true.
that's a win-win situation, basically.
Win-win situation. So
Mm,
such a person at his own expense, knowing very well
mm,
that he will go to hell for doing this, but still,
mm,
if he cares about the well-being of others, he should go around and start killing children. If he does not do that, then that means he is ethical egoist. What do you think?
If he doesn't do that, he's an ethical egoist.
Yes. What do you think?
If he doesn't do that, I don't think if he doesn't do that, it necessarily means. It depends.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry. Go on. What were you going to say?
No. I said so. In fact, no. I thought you were saying something else. But yes.
Okay.
Why do you think that is not the case?
So ethical egoism would be to maximize your own pleasure and minimize your own pain. So it doesn't necessarily mean.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So just to clarify,
Yeah. So
what I'm saying is, if a person who believes that if a person dies young, he would go to heaven, and that person does not go and starts killing children because of the fact that he cares about his own afterlife. He don't want to go to hell himself. So therefore he is not doing that. So do you think that person, by not killing children and making sure that they go to heaven, he is actually following that rational, that ethical egoistic model?
Yes,
No.
you can say that he's an ethical egoist in that sense,
Yes,
in
right?
that particular instance. But yeah,
Right.
Mahdin, please.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure I fully grasp what you're saying. So in a situation where a person wants to kill another child so that they get the benefit of, going to heaven forever.
So
Yeah.
Mahdin, here's the situation.
Yeah.
Kylie, sorry, I'm just trying to.
Sure, please.
Okay, go ahead.
So here's the situation. You have in a society, you have 500 children who are all aged under the age limit for say 10 under 10 years or something, right? 15 years is the age I've heard, but there's a difference probably. I think it's 9, 11 or whatever the age. So under that age, if all the children are killed, they'll all end up in heaven, right? Supposedly they're not even Muslim. They don't have to be Muslim or a non-Muslim, right? It is said in the it's believed that any children who are below the age of puberty, they'll all end up in heaven. So a Muslim person who's a firm believer in God, right? And he says, okay, if he does kill all those kids, then all these kids will end up in heaven, and he eventually will end up in heaven as well because he's a firm believer. So uh, whatever the punishment he's going to get in hell is going to be only for limited time. But after serving that time in hell, he'll end up finally in heaven, right, for eternity. So he's still gonna end up in heaven. So all of them are gonna end up in heaven for eternity. So what Khali is saying, if this guy, what Khali's question is, if this guy doesn't do that, doesn't kill all the children of his society, 500 children, that means he's an ethical egoist, basically.
Yeah.
That's true. And I'm saying, yes, that is true. Within this framework, what he's saying is true. He's an ethical egoist, basically. He's looking after himself, basically, right? In that sense, because he's not looking at the greater good, basically. And greater good in this particular scenario is sending all the children to heaven.
Yeah.
Because if they grow up to be whatever the age for them going into heaven is, they might turn up to be atheist or Christian or adopt any other different viewpoint, at which point they'll not be spared from hell. Basically, that's what the core point of Khayali is, basically.
It depends how you do it depends on how you do the calculation. So if you're trying to do an egotistical calculation in what is more pleasurable for yourself or displeasurable for yourself, it could very well be that even the minimal amount of time that you go to hell, for example, is outweighed by the pleasurable infinite heaven. Yeah. And it might be your ethical egoistical imperative to kill the children. On the other hand, if it turns out to be the case that no, that won't be the best thing for you. Then it might be the ethical egoistic thing is not to do, not to kill the children. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, in both cases that can happen. What I would say in light of the Islamic thing is that the very fact that Muslims don't, within Islamic philosophy, the very fact that you're instructed not to do that shows that it's not ethical egoism, right? The very fact that you're not supposed to calculate things purely like that, right? It says you're not allowed to kill a child. Yeah. If a child dies for whatever reason, yeah, they'll go to heaven and so on. But you're not allowed to do it, which shows that their morality is not at least what is how you're instructed to follow it. It's not from an ethical, egoistical route. You see that? Now that
No, I mean, what I'm saying is, yes, the rule is, if you will kill children, you're going to go to hell, whether it's temporary. So let's say it's temporary in case of a Muslim. But and that is the case, and that's what we're discussing. If that's a problem, that is why they're not killing children, right? Otherwise, it would make sense to kill children, right? It would be, I mean, there would be then no downside of killing children, because then you're killing children right and left because you're making sure that they're going
but
to
they're
heaven.
not. No, yeah. But the point is, they might not be killing children out of that ethical, egoistical, selfish reasoning. It might be that they don't want to kill children for other reasons.
Uh, no, you're right. But what I'm saying is, if
Yeah.
I know, let's say I know for a fact that these children are going to heaven if I kill them right away, they're going to heaven.
Yeah.
But I know that if I
Let
do
me
that,
Kayali, let
yeah,
me
yeah,
add one
Phil
more
Philo, please.
clause to that.
Yes, can you please
J-
add further
just
clarity?
add one more clause to it. That you know that they are going to heaven, and if you don't kill them, they are gonna go to hell. Okay, now
Right. If I don't kill them, they are definitely going to hell, at least for some
Mm.
time, and some of them might end up in eternal hell. So that is a risk
Yeah.
on the other side.
Yeah.
While if I kill them right away,
So yeah,
yes,
yeah. Well, in the kind of setups that you described them to be, that so from the Islamic, I'm trying to defend the Islamic philosophy in the sense that I don't think it is ethical egoistic at root. Of course, there are reasons for that. One of the reasons would be that given the thought experiments that you're giving, they seem to be including conclusions that within the Islamic prism of thought you can't have, such as that they are guaranteed to go do this, guaranteed to do that, right? Within the Islamic framework, you're not supposed to have those views. And that's how they kind of move away from the ethical, egotistical form of reasoning. So from the Islamic framework, you won't be able to even think like that.
when you say think
Madin,
like
I
that,
need
you mean that you cannot believe that children are going to heaven if they die young?
No, no,
That's, I
no.
mean, what?
You cannot believe that is what you said, that they're guaranteed to go to hell if they don't die.
no, but
No, no, no. That's not what it is.
that's a belief.
No,
It's a,
it's
it's a
the condition that you added at the end that
no,
I'm
that's
disputing.
a condition
Yeah,
that's very well. It's a well established condition, by the way. It's not
which
something
one?
new. That if you cross a certain age, if below a certain age, all the
Yeah, yeah, no,
kids.
no. Below a certain age, I think so. I think within Islam, it would be below a certain age that we know that it is for us to believe that children are go to heaven and so on. Yeah, in terms of it is guaranteed that children are going to go to. Some people will go to hell if they don't die. I don't think we know that part. That's the part that I was disputing. So yeah, I
Okay,
think
so
that
so
yeah.
If
let
you
me
take
clarify that.
proper probabilities, if you take proper
Yes,
probabilities,
yes.
then you
Mm.
will say that that probability of the greater probability of going to heaven is still gonna be by killing the kids than by letting them grow up beyond that age. In which case, some of them might end up being atheists, agnostics, or whatever you may have, right?
Mm.
So, just simply probabilistically speaking, it's
Right.
still the case that one
It
case
could.
killing is better than not killing them. You see the point, right?
It could be in terms of knowing that some kids are going to be growing up to be non-Muslim, etc. I Yes, if you're doing an entirely utilitarian calculation through an ethical egoistic framework, but the fact that within the Islamic framework you're not supposed to do that, I think that's what changes it from being egotistical, purely egotistical at heart. So
But
you can
what I'm wondering is, why are you not supposed to do that? Because you're doing that, of course,
yeah.
by spreading the religion. What you're doing the exact same thing, bringing more and more people towards heaven. Isn't
Yeah.
that what you're doing? So
That might be the case. It could be. It could be. For example, inconsistency or within an Islamic philosophy. But the fact that it's a bit like me adopting Sam Harris's well-being principle, and then an atheist and another theist saying, if you accept well-being, you end up with logically the implications of that. You end up with total utilitarianism or something. You need to and etc. Well, that might be the logical consequence, but the individual proponent of that, let's say Sam Harris, may not believe that, and that's what stops it from being utilitarianism. Similarly, if you're a deontologist, you could say that the logical implications of deontology. So deontology is basically when you believe in particular rules without any exceptions, almost like what we talked about using about absolute morality. So it might be thou shalt not kill, etc., without exceptions. But you might say that if you're predicating your morality on deontology, which is to protect human beings, it's about well-being, you should allow for exceptions. And that might be right. You should allow for exceptions. That might be the logical consequence, and that might be a weakness in deontology. But the individual deontologist, when he remains steadfastly committed to deontology, that's what makes him a deontologist. Not the fact that if he applied critical thinking carefully, then deontology would eventually turn into something else. Yeah. So in similar vein, when it comes to Islam, when it comes to the Islamic framework, yes, you can engage like that, but the fact that you're not supposed to stops it from being completely ethically egoistic.
Right. Mahadan, I think I get what you're saying, and I think I agree with that. What you're saying is we cannot say that the Islamic moral framework is based on ethical egoism.
Yes.
And I think I agree with that. What I'm saying is that, however, a Muslim, when I look at a Muslim, I would say that he is not purely following. I mean, by following the Islamic moral framework, he himself is being an ethical egoist. Would you agree with that? Because
no, I'm not. No, if that was the case, then if that was the case, that by following Islam itself, you're an ethical egoist, then my point that I just made before wouldn't make any sense, right? Because then it's by when he follows the Islamic code, he's not doing it for that purpose. He's not doing it for if he's doing it for that purpose, which is he's evaluating his own circumstances and finding out what's pleasurable, what's the best thing to do. Yeah, then he is an egoist.
Right.
But if he's just following the Islamic rule, thou do not kill. Yeah, then that's not ethical egoism. That's that's closer to either divine command theory or deontology.
Right.
So it depends on what his. Yeah.
Yes,
So if he goes,
right.
yeah, can you see what I'm saying? So if I kill this person, so if I don't kill this person, I will get all this benefit, or etc. That's ethical egoism. If I don't kill this person, then I'm following the commands of God, and it's for another reason, like a deontological rule, because I'm not allowed to kill people. I'm not supposed to kill people, and that's a moral rule. That's not ethical egoism. Otherwise, ethical egoism and deontology would be indistinguishable.
Right.
Then we can't, yeah.
Yeah. So I think now I get your point. You're right. From what I understood, you're saying that the motivation of the person who is following that Islamic moral framework, now that is what from where we'll decide
Kind of,
whether
yeah.
it's
How is
ethical egoism
not just
or
the
not.
not just the motivation, but how he's performing the calculation. So if I do
Right.
if there's three people in the room, and I do a utilitarian calculation to think that if I kill myself, two other people will get better, that is Jeremy Bentham's utilitarianism in action. If on the other hand I do a calculation and find out if I kill other people, if I kill myself, two other people will get better, but if I kill them, I will get better. Yeah. Even though it doesn't improve the maximum amount of happiness in the room. So if I kill two other people, sorry, if I kill myself, I'm getting that mixed up. If I kill myself, I can give my organs to these two other people who might die. Yeah. And if I give my organs, they will get better. Right. On the other hand, if I kill them, then I get all these other pleasures and so on. The ethical egoist would not subscribe to the first utilitarian calculation that I said, which is killing myself to give my organs, right? The ethical egoist isn't thinking about others. They only think about others to the extent it improves yourself, right? So the ethical egoist will be like, no, it doesn't matter whether or not my organs can save two other people. I'm going to only think about myself. What improves my own self-interest? To the extent my self-interest might be my self-interest might be in, so let's say those two other people are my children. Yes, then they kind of gets built into the theory, right? It gets built into your calculation because your happiness presides on their happiness. Yeah. Otherwise, if you don't know them, they're strangers. The ethical egoist will be like, F them. You see what I'm saying? So that, the ethical egotistical reasoning is a very self-centered one. And yes, the motivation and the type of reasoning matters. If the Muslim is not reasoning like that or motivated like that, he or she is not an ethical egoist. And then the question is, does Islam prescribe ethical egoism? And well, of course not, because if Islam prevents you to do that, it says don't do that, don't calculate things like that, then it's not ethical egoism.
No, and here I would disagree with you. So what do you think is the motivation for Muslim to follow the Islamic, let's say moral framework? What do you think is his motivation besides pleasure and getting the pleasure and avoiding displeasure of the hell? What do you think is it? Is there any other motivation that Muslim have in general?
Not so. It depends again on what sort of pleasure we're talking about. Is it pleasure in terms of improving the happiness of others? In which case, it's not ethical egoism. If it's pleasure to improve the happiness of yourself, it is ethical egoism. If it's something else, then it's still not ethical egoism. If it's like following an arbitrary command, if it's improve the pleasure of God, for example, which can be, it's still not ethical egoism, right? So within the Islamic framework, if you look at the Islamic jurisprudence, it's a combination of all these things. It's not one or the other. Now, I know some Muslims would say, and they would say something like, the reason that we follow anything is just to obey God. But then you can ask why you're obeying God, right? And some Muslims may say they obey God to please God. And why do you please God, right? If it bottoms out to something like because I want to not go to heaven or not go to heaven, I want to go to heaven or avoid hell, then yes, I would agree that's an egotistical one. But that's the individual Muslim's perception of Islamic morality. What does Islamic morality command? But it's not like that. It's like a combination of those things. God knows best. Yes, it's because you should avoid heaven. Certainly avoid hell. You want to go to heaven. But those are forwarded and advanced like they are reinforcements, deterrences, right? That's not the main reason why you should follow ethical codes. The real reason is that.
Isn't your subconscious isn't your subconscious propelling towards those goals? Basically, that's the point. I think that's where our difference is, Mahdin. I think.
I think when you go to I think when you go to the subconscious thing, it's too sloppy. Not saying your point is sloppy. Sorry, I should say it's too hard to measure. Right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what drives it. I mean, you ask any person who believes in heaven and hell, and you tell them what they do. I mean, there's when they are thinking through it, they'll say,
Because no,
okay,
no, no, because
I want to bring
hold on, because
greater
you're
good and all the things, right?
hold on. By the
But
way,
at the same
I
time,
want to
when
say
you
something very.
sure, go ahead, go ahead.
Sorry, sorry. I just want to very quickly say something. When it comes to morality, I think what matters more is your conscious intent. That's what philosophers like Peter Singer has highlighted. For example, even from an atheistic moral account, the reason that we, for example, are nice to our, let's say, siblings is due to reciprocal altruism, which is a biological
I
mechanism that
agree, I
enables.
agree. But
Yeah,
your conscious decisions are driven by your subconscious motivations. Is what my
that's the
point
thing.
is. That's
When
my
it comes
point,
to
right?
when it
Okay,
comes to moral
hold on, Martin.
evaluation,
Martin, hold on,
yeah,
hold on. Let's welcome
yeah.
Said Bhai, our favorite Said Bhai. Khali,
हेलो
uh,
हेलो भाई
Sai-
कैसे हेलो भाई
uh,
कैसे हैं आप लोग हाउ आर यू डूइंग
Said
सर
Bhai, how are you? How are you?
आई एम गुड सर हाउ अबाउट यू सर
See, I told you, I told you, I thought I told you not to call us, any one of us, sir,
ओके
right?
ओके ऑलराइट
And
सर
I think you are much more experienced in terms of number of years on this planet. So yeah, we
ऑलराइट
respect you in that sense, even if we disagree in our belief systems, right?
ओके
Our
ओके
worldview.
ऑलराइट
Do you want to add anything, Said Bhai?
yeah I like to add something about the morality. You know, when God planned to create a human being, he wanted to test them. You know, yeah, you know about the test in Islamic, is a life is a test. So he wanted to test and gave a choice to human, a free will. Uh, God also gave human being a free will and a test. Uh, and he gave in a human being a moral, moral uh,
Commands.
understanding, moral understanding, the moral understanding.
Fitra is what you mean.
Yeah, fitra. He gave us understanding between right and wrong. For instance, God gave us, he programmed our brain, okay, just like a software, something he put it inside our brain. We know from that, uh, yes,
Madin, you need to mute your Madin. Oh, Madin has dropped out, and so has Khayali Pulao.
I think their internet is break, I guess.
Yes, yes.
So I think they are listening. Uh,
Mhm.
so God program our brain to know right from wrong. Like lying is a wrong. We automatically, when we lie, we feel guilty of lying. You know, everyone who those who lie, they feel guilt. There is a guilt inside, built inside, because that's the automatically detect this is the wrong thing we did. When we still little, even little bit still, we feel guilty of stealing a little bit thing. So and if we hurt an innocent person, you know, we feel bad about that. So these are built in within our brain, within ourselves. God did that because when day of judgment, you cannot blame God. Oh God, I did not know right from wrong. My parents were, you know, bad people. They are still, they, you know. So I learn from them and I follow their whatever they do. I did not know it was wrong. So on day of judgment, you cannot say like that. God, when you go to day of judgment, you steal all this. You already know it was wrong. So God, that's why God built in our system morality. All kind of rape is wrong. We know that everything. Nobody can go and say on day of judgment, rape. I did not know rape is a wrong thing. So God already built in all the system. So that's why He gave us free will to choose right from wrong yourself. So on day of judgment, you cannot blame anybody because of you did, because they told you to do that, all those stuff. It's not gonna work on day of judgment. So morality, regardless of you are atheist, you are Muslim, you are Christian, you are Jew, you are whatever you are, you already know right from wrong. It is built within ourselves. So uh, there is no need to debate religious morality or atheist morality. We all, everybody knows it.
So that means you don't need any books. You don't need
No,
Islam. You
we
don't
don't.
need
We
Christianity,
don't.
right?
We don't need. But this is help you. They are help
No,
you.
why
But
would it? You already said it. It's fitra, right?
Saeed,
yes,
Why would you need it?
How would somebody know that you need to donate X amount of compulsory donation every year called, one of the pillars of Islam
yes,
without learning Islam? How
yeah.
would you know, for example, you have to wear the hijab without learning
Because
it about Islam?
yeah, you see, when we get hungry, we know what is how it feels to be hunger. But when you see somebody is hungry, so we know how that person is going through. So we give them to eat, to food to eat them. So that's how we built it.
Sorry, Said Bhai, just a moment. Khayali Bhai, if you left or you dropped out, I'm not quite sure. We would have loved if you stayed. Anyway, Said Bhai,
Is it you talking to Kylie Palau?
yeah, he's Khayali Pulao
Yeah,
has
yeah. He,
dropped out
he
or he
he
left.
went about 5 minutes ago. He's on the chat. He told me on the chat. He told us on the chat that he's leaving.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay.
I didn't see the.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
he
okay. I
is.
didn't read the chat. Okay, all right, all right, cool. So, Said Bhai,
Yes, sir.
um, yeah, too many questions on this thing, but all I'll say is, why would Madin? Do you have anything to say on this? And then otherwise, we'll move forward with the debate review, maybe.
The only thing that I would say right now is that I think some of our main focus on reviewing the video is getting derailed by too many side issues. I think. What do you think? That might not be productive enough because I think if there's any listeners and viewers who want to listen to this, they're not getting. We're getting distracted into very, very, very deep topics, and then side questions. Obviously, we're not. I'm not. But we love Saeed's contributions, but it's kind of outside of the scope of the debate.
Said Bhai, yes, I think I agree with Madin on this. Said Bhai, uh, sorry to say this. Uh, we would love you to join some other stream when maybe towards the end of some of these streams when we are kind of done uh, reviewing it for like 15 minutes of content or something like that, and then we would love to have you. Is that okay?
Yes, yes, sir. Okay, no problem.
Mana? And yeah, you made some good points. We'll counter those points or whatever. We'll put our arguments against the points that you have made. But if we start going to and fro at this point, I just wanted to say hi to you. So that's why I took you up. But then if we start going to and fro on these arguments, then we probably won't be able to cover the debate. Uh,
No,
so
no, go ahead.
we'll
Do
talk to you
whatever.
again some other time. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Again, no, sir.
Okay,
All right.
okay.
Okay. All right. Talk to you later then, huh?
All right, sir. All right. See you later.
Okay. See you later. All right, Madin. Back to this debate. Uh,
Yeah.
I think we went way too far from our this thing. Let's play it again.
Do you want to finish off what we were talking about, or do you want to just? I think we were
Oh,
talking
you
about
you were
subconscious
you were
mind.
talking about something, right? So go ahead with that. Yeah.
I can't remember now. I think we got distracted so many times in that, and I don't know where Saeed appeared from.
Yeah, I
Again,
think I stopped you at certain
yeah,
point when you were making some point, and then
yeah.
because Said Bhai was waiting for a long time, so I said, okay, bring him on. So my apologies to you.
All right, okay. Yeah, I think you made a point about subconscious mind. I think in respect to subconscious mind, there's a lot of doubts regarding its effects in terms of scientific measurements of what the subconscious mind is. That's the first thing. So it's not really an academically well grasped concept. Then there's other stuff regarding underlying evolutionary motivations, which is not really a motivation, it's more of a drive, right? Like if we have a biological drive, the reason that we help other people is so that our genes get passed on, right? That's more like an evolutionary purpose, and it's metaphorically a purpose. It's not really a motivation. It's more like a blind force. Yeah. What matters with morality, I would say, is that our conscious processing, our conscious intentions. So if you're consciously helping another person and you don't want any reward at all, that's a very morally good, motivated act. Irrespective of the fact that your biology has designed you in a way that you will help this person so that your genes get transmitted to the next generation. Because there is a difference between that sort of selfless act of heroism, let's say, and a very, very selfish act. Even if the undergirding mechanics behind it is the transmission of your genetics. Because that genetic transmission thing, you're not consciously thinking about it. It's not even true to say it's part of your subconscious. It's more like it's part of your biological machinery. Yeah? So I think when it comes to, and Peter Singer made this point in his book, does the existence of our evolution mean that all of our, and the fact that morality has arisen in a selfish game to help maximize the transmission of our genes, mean that when an individual is acting charitably, he's actually acting immorally or selfishly? And he says no, because when it comes to figuring out the moral content of that act, we're evaluating his conscious mind, and that's it, nothing else. To the extent, I'll take your point, to the extent we can uncover something like a subconscious mind.
This is again like we are, yeah, I mean, I agree to your point to a certain extent. I think we are meeting somewhere in between, I think. That's how I would put it, basically. I mean, I do agree to your point. Basically, we'll have to set an axiom over here, right? What do you consider to be a moral act coming from a subconscious mind? Again, we can disagree on whether something like a subconscious mind really exists or not. And I completely agree to that fact.
Well, there is some. When I say whether it really exists, there is obviously science behind it. It's just not very clear cut of how we detect it. I do think there are. Yeah. That's what. The other thing is that there are things like like Jonathan Haidt has found that there are multiple other motivations that influence our thoughts, and he found that there are gut instinct, things that we do out of gut instinct, things that we do out of sheer revulsion, something called the disgust factor, and we do a post hoc rationalization. So we make the moral decision first, and then do a post hoc rationalization. Right. So if you show Jonathan Haidt is a psychology professor, if you show him, if he shows individuals, for example, images or videos of allegedly siblings kissing, and you tell them that they're not going to, they're using a condom, for example, in the sexual intercourse, they're using a condom, so that they're not going to have disabled children. These siblings have been separated for a very long time, that didn't grow up together. They still feel disgusted, human beings, and we start scraping at the bottom of the barrel, to justify our initial gut reaction, which views it as yuck, this is nasty, this is immoral. Yeah, and then we try to look for justifications afterwards, right? That might be a case. I'm just giving you a plausible account of what might be a case for you to develop this kind of theory of unconscious, influences that affects your morality. In which case, the real motivation might be this. It's not really unconscious. More like it's like initial consciousness. So we can say that there's multiplicity of different levels of consciousness. The first one is a gut reaction thinking this is wrong. Then subsequently we form another thought to justify why it's wrong, right? So they're both conscious. It's just the first one is the real reason. The second one is the veneer that you want to put on top of the real reason. The real reason is that you just don't like it. You just don't like a brother and a sister kissing, and then you look for reasons later. That might be an account of what you're talking about, and yeah, that could be an example. But it's too. I don't think we have anything like this for theism. You know,
Right.
like passing the psychological mind like this. Anything strong, anyway. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think, yeah, it's a. I'm not invoking some. I don't want to invoke some very vague science to support what I was saying. But I'm saying just that it is known that we have our whatever you may call it. We even if you want to call it subconscious mind, we have a certain feeling of a certain moral edict, and then we rationalize it, as you
Yes.
said,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we kind of try to term these two differently with two different terms, conscious and subconscious. So whatever you might
Yeah.
want to take with those definitions, that's what I'm referring to basically. And
Yeah.
in my opinion, that inner gut feeling or whatever you want to call it is the first impulse, and then you rationalize that impulse and then come to a conclusion, and then you call it a moral act, basically. However you judge it, basically, it's moral or immoral, basically.
But in reference, using this in relation to the thing that we were talking about, let me just say it's meant to be about your ideal motivation rather than the actual motivation, right? Does Islamic philosophy idealize this gut instinct, or is it the post hoc rationalization? And technically speaking, Islamic morality isn't motivated through ethical egoism, right? It's not saying that it should be like that. In individual Muslims, so it's a very nuanced point that we're making, I think, and we need to be careful where it's stemming from, the disagreement. Well, I think you guys are trying to say that Muslims act like that, right? And the subconscious affects them, etc.
No.
Let's say that is true.
I think no. Yeah. I think you're right in saying that they don't act like it. But then I'm saying the underlying cause might be it's the same principle as fitra, right? Right. What is fitra? It's the innate disposition,
inborn,
right? Innate disposition or inborn disposition of a certain act that you may feel right or wrong, right? I mean, when a baby is born and you kill an animal in front of that baby, I mean, that baby might be 4-year, 5-year-old, not baby, a boy or a girl, right? And then you kill an animal in front of that boy or girl. The innate disposition of that boy or girl, a kid, would be of disgust, of you see my point? But then at a later point you can rationalize it, saying no, we are doing this for God, basically, and then this is good, right? So which one is the
so in terms of individual motivations that regulate Muslims, I think that's you can make a case that there are obviously there's unresolved issues there about subconscious, unconscious, whether the science is right. You can make a case that individual motivations for Muslims differ, but I think that's already known to be the case, right? I've already acknowledged that Muslims, first of all, Muslims can depart from what Islamic philosophy intends, right? An individual Muslim might just simply say the reason he's doing all the things is because he wants to go heaven and doesn't want to go hell. But is that consistent with what Islamic philosophy idealizes, right? Whether or not the ideal of Islamic philosophy is humanly possible is irrelevant. So if the question is, are Muslims egoists? you can make a case that, yeah, individual Muslims can be egoists. If the question is Islam egoistical, then it's more like an Islamic philosophy question where we need to get scholars in and see what the ideal of Islam, what is the ideals of Islam, is the Islamic tenets, what does it espouse? And you'd see that it's not advocating for that. It doesn't even assume that there is a subconscious element to the human being that is driven through that sort of selfishness when it comes to.
I agree to your point completely. And so yes, I think that you can take that you can make that distinction whether Islam as an ideology makes that distinction or not. And for that, I think probably we need to have some certain scholars who will exactly clarify that point. So yeah, I think I'm in sync with you on that. Perhaps we can discuss this topic a little bit more once later on.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Shall we then move
Yeah.
ahead?
I think we should give this another 15 minutes. What do you think? And then, because I think we've got distracted a few times, but I don't think we can get too far with this right now. We've been on it for about 2 hours now. Is it 2 hours? Yeah.
Yes, we are almost touching 2 hours. So shall we close it right here and then come back to it later on with fresh minds? So what do you think?
If you want to give it another 10 minutes, I can do 10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's be quick with these points now. Let's be quick. Yeah.
All right.
एक सेकंड अब्बास, ये मैं कर रहा हूँ अभी और इसलिए अच्छा ये स्क्रीन शेयर हो गई और मैं इसको फुल स्क्रीन कर दूं तो मुझे बताइएगा, क्योंकि फिर मुझे नजर नहीं आएगा कि क्या है।
जी हो गई।
अच्छा, तो ये शुरू करते हैं। ये अनमॉरल कोड, मेरे पास 100 से ज्यादा आर्गुमेंट्स हैं, लेकिन ऑब्वियसली आधे घंटे में अब जो 25 मिनट बचे हैं उसमें शायद इतना टाइम ना हो।
So Mahdin, here at this point, so Harris from he has moved on to pointing moral problems within the Islamic rulings, basically, right? That's what he's doing now. So he's now come up
शुरू
with,
करते हैं औरतों और लड़कियों के हकूक से कि क्या है
he's
इसके
now
अंदर।
come up with
ये सूरह निसा की 34वीं आयत बड़ी मशहूर है कि
problems that he
औरतों, अगर
sees
तुम्हें
or
उनसे सरकशी का
pointing
डर हो,
fingers
खदशा
at
हो कि वो बदतमीज है या तुम्हारे हुक्म के अंदर नहीं है,
Islamic
क्योंकि
morality.
मर्द औरतों पर हाकिम है, एक डिग्री ऊपर है, मर्द औरत नीचे, मर्द ऊपर। तो उसको
Right,
समझाओ,
he's pointing-
नहीं समझती, बिस्तर अलग कर दो और फिर उसको मार की सजा दो।
He's pointing at what is that? Surah Nisa verse 24, I think. Yes, he's talking about Surah Nisa verse 24, where it talks about beating your wife in certain circumstances, basically, right? But now he has moved on from that philosophical point of view to pointing at the scripture, and the collection of hadith and all those things, basically. So, not quite sure. Shall we move forward? Shall we not touch this right now?
Just move forward. What after he makes a case for the first point, let's analyze that. Yeah.
The point that he's making here is that is about women's rights, basically. Women's rights, basically.
Okay.
And his argument is that Islam doesn't give women's rights, basically, or equal rights to women as it gives to men, basically.
Okay.
Did I say women's? Women.
Woman, yeah.
Sorry, yeah. So that's the point. You want to say something?
मारने से क्या मुराद है? अब हम इसकी सुन्नत देखते हैं। इसी तरह हजरत उमर खुद ही नहीं मारते थे अपनी बीवियों को, बल्कि औरों को भी कहते थे कि मारो। इस तरह।
So problem with tackling these arguments, at least from my perspective and from probably your perspective, is as well that somebody or the other is gonna come and say, hey, we don't believe in this translation or that translation, or
Mm.
this particular hadith is not authentic. This is probably
Mm.
Hassan. This is Zaif. This is Maudu. Whatever, you may have categorizations, and you'll just struggle with somebody else coming up to a certain standard for whatever these narrations you're bringing, right? So
Mm.
that's one of the fundamental problems, and that's exactly what happened in this debate as well. So Harris is bringing certain hadiths,
Mm.
and Qaiser is not gonna agree to those, basically, right? And he's gonna find certain fault in certain chain of narrations. So instead of going through these individual hadiths and the moral problems that Harris is pointing at, I want to ask you a different question. Is that okay if I do?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
So the problem and that should bring us to the gist of this whole argument, basically his argument, or even Qaiser Ahmed Raja's argument. How
Mm.
much weightage should be given to what kind of evidence is testimonial evidence, basically? And this why I'm saying it, because chiefly most of the religious believers, uh, they they hinge their belief in these testimonies, right? Their certain book is true because it was transmitted through a chain of narrations. A certain hadith is true because it was transmitted through a good or authentic chain of narrations. So how much weightage do you give to uh, testimonial, facts, or whatever you call it, right? Or testimonies,
Mm.
rather, I would say. Because all these books were transmitted by somebody,
Mm.
right? It came somebody told these stories to somebody, then that somebody told these stories to, in my eyes these are stories, but in somebody else's eyes who believes in them, these are facts, basically, right? So how much
Mm.
weightage should be
Mhm.
given? And
Sure.
can there be an absolute in belief, right? I mean, say supposedly there are 10 people in a chain of narration, basically, and finally those things were written after the 10th person heard it, right? Do you think
Yeah.
that he transmitted exactly the same thing that was spoken to him? And if that happens to, say, a whole book, complete book, how much weightage should
Mm.
be given to the final book, that it's the same? And
Sure.
you see the point I'm trying to make
Ye-
here, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So with that, I mean, to some extent, it like, involves invoking and talking about the historical method, right? And to some extent, also the philosophy of testimonies and yeah, testimonial evidence in itself. And I think, generally speaking, look, I'm not qualified to speak as an historian, but but although I've got some acquaintance with how to deal with witness testimonies and so on. And usually, a good way of preserving good testimonial evidence would be having multiple witnesses, independence from each witness has not been talking to the other one, influencing each other, contaminating their memories. So, for example, when two witnesses end up talking to each other, what happens is that they influence each other and they exchange their views. And what happens is that if you have Charles and Bob talking, Charles may have forgotten lots of stuff, or Charles may change his perception of an event because Bob's story affects him. He incorporates the stories of Bob into his own stories and meshes them together. So we don't then have an independent witness. When you have multiple independent witnesses that never talk to each other, so let's say an event occurs and you have Charles, Bob, Ricardo, whatever, and they are all from different different areas, and they never interacted with one another, and they all say a man wore a red shirt and walked past the road, the chances are that their memories are likely to be correct, because they didn't. We have three different people saying the same thing, and they've not influenced each other. They've not contaminated one another. So one of the canons here is, one of the pillars here is independence, multiplicity of them, early recording, very quick recording of them. Let me just enunciate something again in the dimension of independence. Independence also means being unbiased. You don't have a self-interest in preserving something in a particular way. So if Bob turns out to be the friend of whatever a person he witnessed kill someone, his witness testimony might be biased because he's a friend, and he may describe the events in a biased manner, because the perpetrator here is a friend, is an ally. So we want people to be genuinely independent, where they have no political allegiance, no real self-interest. So independence, multiple witnesses, multiple narrations, etc. That they've not interacted with one another, and they all come to the same thing. It was recorded early enough. The longer you wait before it's recorded or expressed to somebody else, like in a court of law, the more likely your memory is going to deteriorate, mix in with other beliefs, and so on. And this, however, could be corrected to some extent if multiple independent witnesses, even after an amount of time, they all converge to the same belief. So if Charles, Bob, and Ricardo are in different countries, they all witness an event, but they never meet each other. 30 years later, they're still saying the same story, and there's no chance of contamination. They didn't influence each other. That's strong evidence that their individual memories did not deteriorate, right? Because they never mixed with each other. So they're in different continents, and they all said the same story, and it's not changed. Right. So that, I would say those are some of the gold standards. There's other stuff as well, like if you're if you're mentioning something in passing, rather than you have a so for example, if you're what can I say? Well, just slightly outside of the framework of witnesses, if there's a leaflet that was talking about certain events happening in a particular area, the leaflet is about let's say something completely entirely different, but on the leaflet it talks about what was happening in the area. But the leaflet, the motivations of the leaflet is to sell some products. That might be a very unbiased source of information, because they're not directly trying to record history. They don't really care about the terrain or anything like that. They're just trying to sell a product. But because the leaflet talks about events that happened in the society, if that leaflet is found 30 years later, that might be a very unbiased source, because whatever it records about history is more likely to be reliable, because they don't have a real interest in the matter. That's another way of doing it. But yeah, sorry, you might want to. I've been talking for too long.
No. You're good. You're good. Yeah, you pointed out all the issues with that. So good. So in a sense, and I'm just trying to extend your point to this. The points that you mentioned are good for a good testimony, but you can't reach with the testimony, human testimony, or the chain of narrations. You cannot ever reach to a point where it becomes an absolute fact or absolute truth, right?
No, of course not. That's the case with everything. Absolute truth would be
yeah. And so, why I'm trying to make,
I would say in the case of hadith, I was saying the case of the hadith is that all of the testimonies originally was from companions of the Prophet, and therefore it already has a bias ingrained right from the beginning, before it got cross-transmitted and before it got recorded 200, 300 years later.
Yeah, but given that even if they were truthful, I mean, I totally agree with your point. I mean, it's from the get-go they were biased, but even if
Mm.
you assume that they were good, they were unbiased, you still have a problem in the chain of transmissions, because you just cannot assume that there are so many factors at play here. There's so many
Yeah.
parameters at play that you cannot assume that a certain hadith reaching 10 narrations down the line is authentic for sure. There is no way you can do that.
Well, they would say that if the majority consensus of opinions of, so if you have one hadith preserved by one person, another hadith preserved by another person, and they both say the same thing, and the vast majority of the hadith preservers all say the same thing, and there's one minority, it's very likely. This is their argument. I'm not saying it's right. What they would say is that it's very likely that the vast majority of the ones that are replicated, and that's the vast majority, is more likely to be the accurate reflection of what happened, or the accurate reflection of what at least the original companions thought. Yeah, and that's preserved through history. And the minority of them, the minority of the hadiths that dissent from that or are different, are the ones that got contaminated. So that's their argument.
Right. The only point that I have there is that these how do you say that these guys, first of all, there's no independent attestation, right, of these hadith. These are within the same group of people who have the same certain beliefs, right? So even though you may have independent attestations, but they are from within the same group, right? So, and also the authenticity of those people who are transmitting these, who are a part of these chain of narrations, who are giving a testimony for them, basically, are with again those same people who are within that same group, right? So anyway, yeah, I think we are being distracted into the science of hadith. I think we shouldn't go there.
I think one way to have these conversations is, first of all, you can accept some of the pillars of the Islamic tradition and say, and use the rules of the Islamic tradition to determine what the right hadith is, if there are dissenting views, right? Then you can use if not the Islamic tradition, you can use the rules of the historical method to determine what the right hadith is. And I don't think any of the hadiths would satisfy the standards of the historical method.
Right. I agree.
I don't.
Even though
not heard any.
there is said to be, even though there is said to be a certain science behind it, I think first thing first, we need to talk to a mufti who can clarify us exactly what that science is, how it is based, and then maybe we can figure out whether it is according to those standards, historical standards, or if there are any flaws. If there are, then we can point to those flaws then. But whatever I pointed out were based on my understanding so far, so I might be wrong, just to make that point. So
I mean, one critique you can make about the mass transmission and the cross-referencing that occurs from different hadith preservers and the memories of many, and the fact that there's a consensus that you can build from multiple different memories to corroborate each account, and therefore the minority memories that differ are the corrupted ones, and the majority ones are the uncorrupted ones. Is that did everybody is that majority minority distinction created through forgotten memories, or is it or were the dissenters silenced? Did they die? Did some of them were some of them not preserved? Because if you have like three preservers saying one thing, two of them saying another thing, right? That's 3-2. that 3-2 majority. Well, could it have been 3-3? Could we have another preserver that would have, who didn't dissent from the majority simply because, and therefore made it 3 versus 3, simply because the person died, the person didn't get to record something, etc. Then the majority minority sort of consensus to minority distinction was only created through happenstance, other events, life and death events, political events around in the community that suppress opinions and so on. It could be, I don't know enough about it. I'm just saying these factors can affect the recordings as well.
Sure,
Yeah.
I do agree. I do agree with that point. But I think what we need to do is we need to bring a person who knows the science, and then
Mhm.
maybe the only thing that I think I'm pretty sure you know as well. Just in Sahih Bukhari, I think it's said that he collected about 600,000 hadith, and then he checked out pretty much 98% of it, basically 96,
Yes,
97%
yes.
of it, basically.
Yeah.
Right. So I think we need to at least understand what the science behind it is, and then I think we need to see how it plays, and then maybe we can critique it. But my point basically was more on this this kind of Chinese whispers game, basically, that happens in most of the traditions, in the Christian tradition or in the Islamic traditions, basically. So because these books were written probably 200 to 250 years later than the events they describe, basically. Even in Christian case, these Gospels were written probably about 80 to 100 years later, right?
Yeah.
After the events they describe, basically. So, yeah.
And it's usually by one
that's the
person.
point.
So,
No?
yeah. It's usually by one person, one or two people. So just like in Christianity, you might have had like hundreds of people witnessing the resurrection. The crucifixion and the lack of body of Christ, etc. You have hundreds of people witnessing that. But the real claim is not against the supposed 100 or whatever number of people who witnessed that. The real claim is against the one individual who wrote it down, that there was 100 witnesses. So technically there's only one author. And in that same sense...
That's an extremely valid point, basically. Yes,
yeah.
That's true. That's true.
But that comes down to almost all of history. So if you're going to make that point as an argument, that's applicable to even our own history, right? Insofar we attacked historic witnesses, it will attack. To be consistent, it will attack a lot of our own historical figures. When I say our own, I just mean a very secular history that outside of the religious folds. Obviously, I'm not committed to them in any sense.
But there is a distinction to be made in terms of a history that has that is based on certain political motivations, and a history that is neutral to any political motivation.
That's fine. Yeah.
In terms of Christianity or any other religion, we are dealing with a certain political motivation, in a sense, right? Even if they are not, even if they are implied and not out there as an open, right? So,
the question is okay. Yeah, you're right. The question is Bukhari an impartial, neutral preserver versus, a historian from modern times, let's say, investigating something and uncovering a trove of testimonies. We only have his account. We only have the Western secular historian's account that there were X many people who witnessed some sort of historical event occur.
Right.
So the real claim is,
right.
Go on.
Sorry, go ahead. Finish your point. And
so the real witnesses of the event or obviously dead, we're taking account of the historian's claim, and the historian acts as almost like a witness for the witnesses who witnessed an event. You see what I'm saying? It's the historian's testimony being used to get at the witnesses who allegedly left testimonies. If we accept the historian, then we should be able to accept even an individual testimonial from Bukhari that there were multiple testimonial evidence, cross corroborating, mass transmitted, consensus, etc. And he discarded unreliable ones and he preserved the reliable ones, or something like that. Well, question is Bukhari a skeptical, unbiased, impartial, neutral historian almost? Because that's what he's doing. He's being a historian, like the ideal historian, or is he not? Does he have his own biases, at least strong enough to affect his determination of what's right and what's wrong when it comes to hadith classifications, etc.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the point. I mean, somebody writing about Pythagoras doesn't need to invent things for him or whatever he wrote, or filling out testimonies about him, because more likely than not, that's going to be neutral, unless until there is a certain motivation behind his writing those testimonies, maybe. But here in this case, you'll have to be a little bit more skeptical of these testimonies, because they are coming from a political background or a certain motivation behind those writings, right? So yeah, I mean, that's exactly the point you made right now. So I think we'll close it at this. Unless you want to make
as you're closing, I'll say one more thing. There are, however, many questionable things within the hadith that were preserved. That I'm just trying to make a case for Bukhari now. Bukhari and the hadith preservers, because there's lots of controversial elements that were preserved in the hadiths, and by the nature of its content, if the content itself contains embarrassing things, humiliating things, right, things that require further explanation, and the hadith preservers, the people of the time, or Bukhari even, would find it unsettling to preserve it, but he still did. It could indicate impartiality.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. The only issue here is whether that's something that you're saying controversial, whether it was controversial at that age or not is the question, right?
Exactly. That's what I said, in their perception.
So something that you need to figure out independently, right?
Absolutely, yeah. But the principle that I'm echoing is just like a heuristic, Then we need to apply it in the context of Islam and find out whether or not there were some embarrassing things that they would not want to preserve. If indeed everything in the hadith seems to be perceived to be moral and good and righteous, that does indicate a bias. So from the get-go, you might say anything that the Prophet Muhammad did was considered to be moral and righteous anyway, right? So, are you there, by the way, Philo?
Yeah. I'm here.
The screen seemed to frozen for a bit. I thought, did it happen again? Yeah. So, in one sense, if the Prophet Muhammad is perceived to be good and righteous anyway, then nothing should be humiliating, right? So it's really hard to figure out what was deemed bad and good back then, because if whatever Muhammad did was conflated with the good, then none of the hadith preservers, the companions, and so on, would be affected by that, by anything by doing anything bad, because they're construing it as good anyway. So how can we distinguish between what's humiliating and what's not? At the same time, you may then take a different view and take a view. People are human beings and they have imperfections, and even if the so-called prophet does something allegedly righteous, if it will affect the conscience of the witnesses, the companions, and it would have affected them, and they still put it in, and therefore is reliable. So I don't know how you can go about this. It's a very complex conversation.
Right. I think we'll put a stop to it here.
Yeah.
I think otherwise we are not gonna finish this stream in another
Yeah.
hour or so as well. So
I think we've only
I
got
think-
into it like 5 minutes or something, isn't it? And
I
that's not
think
productive.
we haven't gone too far into that debate. But yeah, one thing is why I brought up this problem of narrations is because a large part of this debate is hinges on those narrations basically, and
Yeah.
you can question both the sides whether who's right or
Sure.
who's wrong. Basically, I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah.
the problem is, and why I'm questioning
And Philo,
narrations is
let me just say, I do need to go now.
Sure.
So I want to
I
abruptly
think,
stop you. But if you want to summarize what you're going to say in 10 seconds.
yeah, sure.
Please.
I think
Yeah.
we'll carry on this
Okay.
review later on in part 2. Thanks, Mahdin,
I
for
think we
being
need to
with me.
be I think we need to be a whole lot faster in the next one, and not get too
Definitely.
caught up on
We
them.
need to. Yeah, we
Yeah.
need to. I think we covered a large part today with the narrations, so we'll cover a
Yeah.
large part. We'll go in larger swaths next time on, right?
Yeah.
Thanks for
Yeah.
being with me, Mahdin. You wanna end up, add a few more words before
No,
we
I think
close?
I hope people enjoyed it. It was a bit of a long one, and I hope in the next cast that we can actually get through the videos quicker and more
Yeah, we
substantive and
digressed.
more productive. Yeah,
Sorry, we
without too many
digressed a bit.
digressions.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
digressed a lot in this one. Hopefully, next time we won't. So, thank you, everybody who's listening or who's gonna listen, and please subscribe and press that bell button so that you hear about the next streams happening. Right, and like the stream if you like this content. Thank you very much. Thanks, Madin. Bye bye.